As the Phillies faced the offseason questions, a few notable players were honored with gold gloves, 4 specifically here, with several key members of the Phillies proving their worth on the national stage. However, one of those guys was not their $300 million shortstop, Trey Turner. In this video, I want to talk about giving some highlights to the guys who did shine on the defensive path, as well as dive into Dave Dombrowski's comments about the future of Trey Turner at shortstop for this Phillies team. So, Luke, to throw it to you right off the bat here, my initial question to you: did the Phillies have a good defensive team this year?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
I actually thought they did, and honestly, in comparison to like years past, yeah, they really did. So obviously, Zack Wheeler, his second straight year with a nomination, I believe. I believe he was nominated last year as well. First year first baseman Bryce Harper. Honestly, has a pretty good shot to win it. I think. It would either maybe be him or Christian Walker, but I think honestly the edge will probably go to Bryce. Bryson Stott is another one. Going to be a bit tough for Stott as far as the guys that he was nominated with. I believe Bryce Terang is probably the favorite there. And then Brandon Marsh, who was I would say a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Definitely not one that I was really predicting. But I mean, he had a good defensive year. I wouldn't say there's a ton of like good left fielders. And if you qualify for the innings and you have some sort of defensive run saved in the positive, then you're, as far as the outfield, you're probably going to be in the nominations there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, like, each of these guys, I would say, like, Bryson Stott is very clearly, in my eyes, the best defensive player out of the 4 that are
Yeah,
here.
for sure.
As you mentioned, probably the stiffest competition. I do think the Bryce Harper conversation is interesting because he makes these, like, flashy plays at first base that you don't see from a lot of guys, but you also see the moments where he does struggle with kind of the nuances of the position and the way that you set your body up, things like that I thought showed face at times. But overall, he exceeded expectations in a major way for his first season at first base there, and does show what an impressive athlete he is. Now, another guy who's gotten plenty of talk about being an impressive athlete is Trey Turner. Now, we've talked a lot about Trey Turner. It was made very clear that he will be the starting shortstop in the coming year. Dave Dombrowski spoke a lot about him and was asked a ton about his defense specifically. He first started off saying, quote, "He does have good range. He makes really good plays at times, but he also makes too many errors at times, but he continues to improve." And a couple other quotes that I did want to dive into here. We have, quote, "Well, when you say that," and this question coming from asking about the defense specifically here and kind of seeing some regression in Trey was how the question was phrased. And Debrowski replied, quote, "Well, when you say that, the metrics are very similar to what they were before he came here in many ways," Debrowski said. So Trey will be our shortstop. Yes, he's going to be our shortstop for the coming year. But we also feel that sometimes you have to be careful with some of that. And I'm not sure which metrics you're using, but they're not always 100%. We rely on defensive metrics, but no, there's also not a perfect way of describing the defense and aspects of our game as far as we know. And the article continues on saying, "It is true that there isn't a perfect defensive metric, and coaches and players will tell you that there are ways based on positioning to manipulate the numbers. With that in mind, defensive metrics should be a part of the evaluation, but not the entire thing. However, the new and old school metrics most commonly used have dropped off quite a bit since Trey Turner put on red pinstripes." So, Luke, your honest assessment here. Has Trey Turner lived up to your expectations in the field?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Mhm.
As far as the whole fielding thing, it's this sort of quote from Dombrowski really just like isn't correct.
Yeah.
He like just genuinely false. He has regressed in the field. Before he signed with the Phillies, I believe, yes, so he never made more than 13 errors in one season playing shortstop. His highest of his career was he made 13 errors in 2019 with the Nationals in 122 games. His last season with the Dodgers in 2022, he made 16 errors in 160 games. Last year, his first year with the Phillies, he played 153 games, made 23 errors. And in 2024, he He's in there for 118 games with 17 errors. So not as many errors as last year, but obviously not as many games.
Yeah.
So if you do the math there, he's about on pace to make around the same amount of errors if he matched up those games from last year.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say he's really improving.
Yeah.
He's just not that he's really just like he doesn't look like an elite defender.
No.
And I wouldn't say he was never necessarily an elite defender. He was above average. He was good, but he doesn't really look good now anymore.
At all.
He definitely has his moments, right? He has his flashy plays. He can get to the ball pretty quick, but just some dumb fielding mistakes that you shouldn't have from a $300 million shortstop. So it seems like he's going to stay there at least for this upcoming season. Granted, things can change from now to March, but I don't know. I think the argument here is, do you want to take Stott away from second base? I don't know, but I can't have another 20 error season from Trey next year.
Yeah, there's two things that bother me specifically about Trey Turner in the field. Number one, that it does feel like things compound, that when he's bad at the plate, he ends up being bad in the field, and they're not
Yeah.
independent of each other. He gets in his own head, and his entire game looks bad. I hate that about him. I think that was crystal clear in like the true pitfalls and down areas of the Trey Turner spiral last season. Like that last error that he had, the one just going right through his legs before he had the full meltdown. That to me was like a total just piling on of everything. But I don't think it's a good trait that they're connected in that way. The other thing is it tends to be the basic plays that he messes up the most, that he will make like an impressive deep range, backhanded, tough throw that looks really good. And then he'll turn around the next play like a normal chopper right at him that he just kind of scuffs up and can't handle quite well. In either case, like when you are making the money Trey Turner is making, it's just kind of has to be better than that to me. I'm in favor of flipping Stott and Turner. I don't think it'll ever happen. And I mean, Debrowski is clearly putting on the table that it will not happen. I did want to pull up one other quote in this that it said, Dombrowski acknowledged some of these shortcomings, but did say that the Phillies believe there are some positives from him defensively as well. Quote, he did not have an outstanding season as a defensive shortstop, Debrowski said. He does have good range. He makes some really good plays at times, but he's also made too many errors at points. But he has improved. He's worked hard, and I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to improve despite his age. It was pointed out to Debrowski that in terms of DRS, QAA, and errors, Turner has declined in the past 2 seasons, and then he was asked why he believes the 31-year-old will improve as he ages. Quote, well, he works hard, Dombrowski responded. First of all, he's a rare player, and one of the reasons that we signed him to a long-term contract, he's very athletic, and so his speed is still very good. He's still one of the fastest guys in baseballs, so I don't think that you can compare his aging process to, say, the average player. But he's a guy that is just very athletic. He works hard. He's got a good infield instructor in Bobby Dickerson. We saw some strides ourselves this year and some of the same things that he's improved upon, so that's why I think he'll get better. This is a whole lot to say about nothing, kind of in my mind here, that I do think Debrowski going out of his way to defend the dude and blatantly kind of lying for him. I kind of appreciate that to an extent that, like, this is your bed, you got to sleep in it, that you just handed this dude your deal and you're not getting off that by any extent. So this is kind of how I look at it. Any way that I slice this, the only way I see this Phillies team's ceiling raising is if Trey Turner plays better than he has so far in red pinstripes. And I don't care that he runs fast. I don't care that he slides cool. You just got to be a better baseball player than he's proven to be on the field. And I'm not overly optimistic that that happens either at the plate or as a fielder.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're not gonna win if you get this version of Trey.
Yeah.
He's got to be better. He has to be better at the plate. He has to be better in the field. But I'm not like giving up on this dude. He has a track record. He got $300 million for a reason. He's a good baseball player. I think there's obviously definitely parts of his games where he needs to improve. I think the chasing is one that sort of really hit the head like the back half of the season. And then obviously the defense. I think it just needs to improve. I think that will hopefully be here with time, I guess, this offseason. But no, I mean, you need to see the $300 million man that you paid for next year.
Yeah, you absolutely do. I don't see a route in which this Phillies team can achieve its World Series goals or look better than the version of them that we saw this year if that is not the case. So, congrats to the guys that did take home the Gold Gloves. That is not a list, or qualified for it at least there. That is not a list I expect to see Trey Turner on anytime soon, and we'll see how things shake out from there. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. If you have not already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. We're going to have plenty of content coming out in the offseason. There is a lot to get into with this team, as they do feel like they've hit a bit of a crossroads for the first time in this era. So come hang with us, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and me and Luke will be talking with you next time. Peace.